This is Chattanooga Civics. I'm Nathan Bird. The City of Chattanooga is getting ready to vote for a new mayor and city council. Early voting will begin February 10th and end on February 25th. The deadline to request an absentee ballot is February 23rd. Election Day is March 2nd. Please visit the Hamilton County Election Commission website for more details. I'm here with Demetrus Coonrod. She is running for re-election in City Council District 9. And if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and the district that you're running in.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm Demetrus Coonrod. I'm a native of Chattanooga. I've lived in District 9 pretty much all my life. Grew up, went to public schools that we share in the District 5, since we don't really have a school for District 9. And I graduated in 93 from Chattanooga High School. So yeah, just ready to continue to work for the people.
Great. So I'd like you to briefly describe, I guess, so far you're the only sitting council person that I've been able to interview. And so if you could just kind of go over what has been your vision for the council in this last term that you're just completing, and what do you plan to improve and carry forward into your next term?
Yeah, so my vision has been to unite the council as one. Although, we always say that we're nonpartisan, but we have to practice that, right? And move our partisan issues to the side and really work. So I've been really kind of concentrating on that and holding my counterparts accountable to that. Like, we gotta, be better stewards and just really focus on the issues that affect our community members that we serve. And so for the next 4 years, Nathan, I really want to concentrate on strengthening the family unit, right? And addressing key issues so we can really just kind of, stop the revolving door of different issues that affect our community members. And, by addressing the whole entire family, you know what I mean? Like, we just can't say, well, kids are, failing in school, needing help in school. We got to figure out what extra resources that kid need. We need to, talk to the parents and make sure that we're giving them the wraparound services and support that they need. And fathers, making sure that we're connecting fathers to a lot of the homes, because a lot of times that's the missing link. Yeah.
Great. Could you talk a little bit more about your plans on that end? This is really exciting. This is not something I've really heard about from any of the council members so far.
Yeah, absolutely. So Nathan, my plan is to strengthen our Office of Family Empowerment. And so most it's just, a lot of people just look at it as a tool or a place where I can go and I can get assistance to pay my rent or, pay my utility bills and different things like that. But it should be looked at more than that, right? Because it's a strength for families to take advantage of, however, to address every issue that you're having. Now figure out why, that you're having to keep coming in. If we just paid your bills and utilities this month, next month you're coming in and a month after that. Well, let's talk about why. Let's create you a budget. Let's get you financially stable. You know what I mean? And then it could be often you may be having some problems with your mate, domestic violence and different things like that. Offer a safe place so you can talk about that, so we can get you in a safe situation, right? And then talk about like having to work 2-3 different jobs. Let's help build your resume. Let's strengthen you, as provide you with the skill set that's needed to land a job to where it could be affordable for you to take care of your kids. Let's talk about the behavior patterns of our children that's disruptive in school, and talk about the why, and make going to school a fun thing again. It's cool to learn in school and graduate and see what other options that you have. And by doing that, it builds a stronger family unit, right? And then we understand, the need to care for our families and not just, having latchkey kids or being involved in schools and with the PTA meetings and different things like that. So it kind of just chips away at those layers, right? And so I really want to work towards that.
That's great. That's really exciting. That's not something I've heard about from any of the other candidates so far. I want to jump into a couple questions, kind of starting with the budget and the budget writing process. The mayor currently leads the budget writing process, and it's currently under the budgeting for outcomes, which starts in November and then goes through this long multi-month process until it is presented to the council sometime, I believe it's in June.
Mhm.
And the city council has the right to amend or even reject the mayor's proposal. And I'm just wondering, do you feel like the city council should exercise that authority to amend or reject more? Do you think the process needs to change in any way? And what do you think the city council can do to kind of strengthen public engagement in that process?
Yeah, so I think we need to be involved more. We need to be involved in November, right?
Hmm.
Before the budget gets to our lap to say, hey, we need you to
Hmm.
vote on this. And oh, it's so urgent because we have organizations that are needing this fund and, blah, blah, all this stuff. I think, so we're left out of that process, right? And it needs to be strengthened so we can be involved in it. Our charter says that the budget has to be approved by the council members, right? The council and the mayor, and we also supposed to work together with that.
Hmm.
And it takes a lot of time, and some of our,
Right.
council members, they have jobs or, doing different things, but I think it's something that we need to most definitely be a part of the conversations when we're working on that budget. So therefore, we know what to advocate for, what to push for on the beginning end, and not just wait to the end where it's considered a state of emergency if we don't pass it right then, or we really can't afford for other people to be waiting, that kind of thing. And I think that we should, council most definitely should exercise that authority to amend it if we need to, reallocate fund, make sure that we're pushing the best interests of the constituents that we serve. Now,
Hmm.
Nathan, how I do think that with the budget for outcomes, it doesn't really reflect all the citizens in Chattanooga, right? Like we miss out. You may have some community areas of the city that, of housing may not be an issue, right? Roads may not be an issue. So it's a lot of things that we need to make sure that we're hearing the voice of everybody
Right.
collectively to see what the issues are. And I think we most definitely got to do a better job on engaging the community, right? Because the process of how we got it now is just not working. It doesn't work for me. Like you have, people come out, but it's not the amount of people that I would expect to when you're talking about
Hmm.
a bit, all this money in the budget.
Right.
And so I think we got to think about ways how uh, technology, how we can connect people there if they're not able to physically come. Maybe we can go on Zoom. We need to radio advertise, invite people to come out on a podcast to talk about it. However, send out surveys, mailers. It's got to be a whole campaign to
Hmm.
get people engaged in it. Just like we're campaigning to run for our seats, it's got to be a campaign to get people engaged in the budget process.
Great. And a lot of people, their kind of first exposure to the budget and the budget writing process happened this summer
Mhm.
when there were the police protests over the killing of George Floyd, and we had this national conversation, and it was really interesting to see 200 something people sign up to speak at a city council meeting, which I imagine was a very taxing night for you. I know you all were up till I think it was like 1 a.m. or something.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm wondering, there are a lot of different suggestions on how to improve our law enforcement system, and especially as it relates to the budget, the suggestions are all over the place. Some people want to increase funding so that we can hire better officers and provide better training. Some people think that the system is broken and that we need to divest and then reinvest into other areas that are kind of upstream problems.
Mhm.
And so I'm just wondering where you stand and where you think both the budget needs to be changed, if it needs to be changed, and also any other ideas you might have to improve our law enforcement system in Chattanooga.
Yeah, great question with that, Nathan. I think that it's time, past time that we reimagine what our law enforcement does, the police department, because now we have a lot of other issues that have arisen since, you know what I mean, prior to the protests, right?
Mhm.
And so we know throughout history why the police was created in the first place. And so we do have to have police officers that's willing, and our community members, we it's time to bridge that gap, right? And we need people that really care about serving people, protecting and serving actually, and not harming people,
Mhm.
right? In that way, and be better stewards, right? And when they're in our community, and we need to have a diverse police department. Like we need to have all kind of people and build those relationships, and not just when they come into the community to be like a scare factor, you know what I mean, or to put fear in the people. It should be when they see the police is, hey, there's Officer Jax, or he's coming to play basketball with us today, or
Mhm.
kids, hey, can you help me with my homework, or they're not afraid, you know what I mean. So when we have crime and different things happening, it's a different approach. When it comes to the police, we're not afraid to call them because we know they're not coming to beat us. They're not, tasing us to the ground. They're not dragging us out our home to, take us to jail, that kind of stuff. And we need people who understand mental health, right?
Mhm.
Because it's a lot of crises that's happening within that, and it needs to be social workers that's working alongside our police department when it comes to that type involvement. And we need to be able to route our calls to that. So if it's somebody that's having a mental health crisis, then we should be able to route that out, you know what I mean, to a social service agency to connect them with their social service network, and who can get out there maybe to administer the medicine they need, or just to get them a common source,
Mhm.
a weighted blanket that they may need at that moment. You know what I mean? So we need to be able to tap in and tune into that kind of thing. Um, and I think like our police department most definitely don't need to be militarized like that. You know what I mean? Like the weapons and different things like that. I think it's a step that we have to, to take for escalation purposes. But I
Right.
think that is the way how you treat people, how you speak to people from the beginning of the initial encounter, then it won't lead to different escalation things. So I most definitely support, moving funding from our police department that's going to be put into areas that's going to strengthen the network across the board. Yeah.
Mhm. And then another question kind of related to the budget is, talking about how we recover from COVID. Chattanooga's been hit pretty hard, especially
Yeah.
kind of around Christmas time. We got just really hit very hard. The vaccine's starting to kick in, and as far as the virus goes, things are looking a lot better. But we do have a looming economic crisis, the fallout from this, especially as the PPP loans start to run out, as the eviction protections start to expire. And so I'm wondering, what do you think the city council can do to really help Chattanooga recover and help these small businesses survive and help these people who are struggling to make their rent?
Right. I think you continue to do what we're doing, to push, to continue to use the funds, to pay rent, to making sure that people are
Mhm.
not evicted, the ones that are, hopefully they'll continue to reach out to us, you know what I mean, to get in the
Mhm.
pipeline, to get their paperwork done. And because we've ran into some obstacles with people getting the necessary paperwork that they have to fill out, and, information from their employers and different things like that. But Nathan, what we done was, once we realized that there was a barrier, right? We reached out the hood and said, hey, the people that are needing this assistance, they're having issues or, problems receiving certain information that you need. Can
Right.
you waive that? Can we go around that? Because we want to make sure that people are still continuing to be housed. So we was
Mhm.
able to get that done, and more funding that from the state. So we allocated it to the purpose of, making sure that we're housing people, getting their rent paid, their utilities paid, and everything like that. So that's a source that we most definitely will continue to do. The eviction moratorium that was on, we've been, in touch with the governor, making sure that he's extending that. We're on top of it with landlords who are trying to, file eviction notices. We're working with those individuals as well, and making sure that we're getting their rent and everything paid. So my goal, Nathan, and the goal of the council, like, we most definitely don't want anybody to be displaced or
Mhm.
evicted in any way. We want to make sure that we're keeping them in shelter in the homes that they have. And if it's to the point where they've had to leave that home, we want to make sure that we're getting them placed somewhere else that's safe.
Right. So I'll move on to another topic, a little bit lighter topic. Chattanooga is making a name for itself as an outdoor destination. Lately, we've been named #1 city by Outdoor Magazine twice now, and
Mhm.
I'm wondering what your thoughts are on this new reputation and how you might factor the city's outdoor resources into your legislative agenda.
Yeah, so I'm loving the outdoor field, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And everybody seems to love it that's moving here, and our people here. What I would like to see is that people who typically don't have access to participate in the
Right.
outdoor thing, I would like for them to be able to be more involved in it, you know what I mean? And just trying to get them connected to it, because to be honest, Nathan, a lot of Black people just not connected to outdoors. They're not rock climbing, they're not hiking,
Hmm.
they're not biking, they're not, doing those kind of things because we typically don't get introduced to it, right?
Right.
And now I think it's a time that we can be more connecting to the people to make sure that the ones that typically don't get served in that arena, that we have access to it, maybe reduce the cost because that could be a factor, or accessible transportation to it. Have different pop-up events for people to get engaged. So that's what I would love to see there. And as far as legislation goes, yes, we need to make sure that we're legislating that and putting it in our budget so people
Hmm.
know that it's an opportunity for everybody to participate in the great outdoors.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Great. And then moving on to another topic, Chattanooga government has a bit of a reputation as an insiders club, decisions being made outside of the council chambers and in, the Chamber of Commerce or the mountains, or, people point to all different directions. But the idea is that a lot of people don't feel connected to the city
Mhm.
government. They don't feel like their voice is being heard. And so I'm wondering, what do you think the city council can do to make sure that all Chattanoogan's are, they feel like they're being equitably represented and that their voices are being heard?
Yeah, I think that what the council should do is like we really got to be active in social media. Like that's the trending thing, right? We got
Hmm.
to be engaged, and because our millennials and generation, like that's the thing. Like they're on TikTok, they're on, you know what I mean? They're on Instagram, they're on whatever social media outlet that it is. We have to start connecting with that, right? Because we see our younger generation, like you guys are rising up, like, hey, we're not gonna be, putting up with that. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
we get it. Our more seasoned people did that, and then we just have to keep them connected as well because they still want to receive letters in the mail. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Whereas you and I, we'll just say, shoot us an email. So we got to think about how we're going to reach everybody and keep them engaged. And I think the city council, we've got to be, we've got to keep change, right? We just can't keep, well, let's just do a 6 o'clock meeting and everybody come to the chambers here. Well, we need to be more accessible for if you can come in person, if you can view us on Zoom or, whatever app, we should be on all apps or outlets for anybody
Hmm.
to connect to the meeting, YouTube, if you're on that, the Blue Jean app, whatever it is that people can Zoom and Google, Hangout, whatever it is. And it's got to be a cool thing to be involved in government. We just got
Hmm.
to, push it out there so people they'll want to get involved. They don't want to miss a meeting.
Right, right. And then, so my next few questions are kind of all centered around development and kind of associated topics. So the first one is, a lot of residents that I have talked to are worried about development, and they're all kind of worried in different ways. There's a lot of different ways that people look at this issue. Some people are worried that we are overdeveloping Chattanooga, that we're not being stringent enough with our development regulations, especially around stormwater, traffic generation, and steep slopes and things like that. And then I've also talked to other people who are worried that we're making it so difficult to develop. The regulations are so difficult to navigate that it's making it harder to build, and it's making it more expensive to build, which leads to higher housing costs. And so I'm wondering, where do you stand on this issue, and what do you think the city council can do, especially given that, this is one of the areas where the city council is most effective in terms of the fact that you all control the zoning codes.
Mm-hmm. I think that with the zoning, 'cause certain areas are saturated with housing and different,
Hmm.
optimizing it. And, what I've learned, Nathan, is that investors and developers, they want to build in the hottest trending areas, right?
Hmm.
And it's gonna, and that means sometimes it's overpopulating in that area. And I'm like, hey, yo, just come on my side. We've got plenty of room, you know what I mean, for you to build and start, urbanizing the parts of District 9, especially on Glass Street area. And they look at market trends, they look at, the affordability and that kind of stuff. And then you get into the weeds of what gentrification would look like. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But, although we want it to be improved, but we want to build something and keep the people that we have in here, right? We don't want to
Right.
get off the grid with it. But I think that we have to hold them accountable to the storm water runoff and different things like that, because it ruins other people's property. So I believe that those codes and different things like that needs to be there still. I think the fees, if you're not doing what you're supposed to do, then that should be assessed to you. But I do think that when you have areas that have lack of investment in it, that there should be opportunities for you to kind of look at the zoning requirements or the fees or the steepness of it, so we can get people to come into those areas to
Mhm.
invest in develop those areas. So maybe we could kind of, you know, look at that. Yeah, but we most definitely, it need to be whatever it is, equitable for
Right.
across the whole Chattanooga. Yeah.
Right. And you mentioned gentrification, and I want to dive into that in a little bit more detail. And I guess it'd be helpful to start by kind of defining it. There's a lot, it gets really confusing when you talk to people about gentrification because it seems like everybody uh, means something different. So
Hmm.
if you could just kind of very quickly, sum up what you mean by gentrification, and then also kind of dive into what you think the city can do to help prevent that from happening.
Yeah, I think, it's the really got a negative label to the
Hmm.
word gentrification because we use it's like the buzzword for now, right?
Right.
Next year it may be something else. You know what I mean? Prior to that, they use words like neighborhood revitalization,
Hmm.
rehab, neighborhood, you know what I mean? Neighborhood improvements, and all of it ultimately means the same thing, right? You want to see your community improved or better.
Hmm.
And but what happens is that once that start happening, people can't, afford it. So if they fix up a house here and then my house still looks, bad, then my taxes, I may not be able to afford it or whatever. I'm gonna decline their property value and, you know, different things like that. And people begin to sell because now I don't want to say they're desperate, but they're in a pinch. And so if somebody comes in your house is just kind of, dilapidated a bit, then they come
Hmm.
say, well, I want to offer you 30,000 to buy your house. If you've never seen 30,000 in your life, then you're like, okay, I'll sell. Well, you sold your house and now you're a renter. And we could have easily, probably tapped you into some resources to rehab your house. So now it's
Right.
flowing trending, but that's not happening. People are getting priced out. They're selling their homes for a little of nothing, and people are taking advantage of our elders, and in that way, and taking advantage of other people too, because you're not knowledgeable about what's going on. You know what I mean? And
Right.
that's what I see happening. And people begin to be displaced, and
Hmm.
yeah. And they fix them up, buy the house for a little nothing, fix it up, and then put it on the market for $250,000 or
Right.
more. And that's the problem. It's like, whoa, you just quadrupled that. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah. So I think we got to kind of monitor that a little bit.
Right. And I agree with that assessment of gentrification. I like hearing people's definitions of it just because it's such a hazy term in some people's minds. So I'm wondering, what do you think the city council can do to, you mentioned a couple ideas of, getting people in touch with resources to renovate their own homes so that they can
Mhm.
keep those funds and keep their house and control their own ownership. And I'm just wondering, what else do you think the city council can do to kind of improve that, to make sure that these neighborhoods can improve without people being pushed out?
Yeah, I think we could probably because like you said before, we kind of do well with the zoning thing. Is that work with neighborhood associations as far as with the zoning for their neighborhood. So if we're saying we don't want high rises in this neighborhood, whatever you want, straight single family homes, then we have to abide by that, right? So if a developer coming in and saying we want to put a mixed use development, blah blah blah, well, okay, it doesn't fit with what the neighborhood would like, the
Mhm.
plan for the neighborhood. So we gotta make sure that we're focusing on that and reach out to the community. Hey, a developer is coming in with they're requesting a zone rezone. You know what I mean? Like, how do you feel about it? Get them engaged, connect them with the developer that's coming into their community so they could, articulate their vision for what they would like to see. So they'll feel like they're a part of the planning of it from the beginning. And they're not just being pushed over saying, oh, we're going to place this here in your neighborhood, right? And
Right.
then also, what I would like to see is more ownership of pushing that in our conversations, even in the work that we do, right? Because what Highland Park done so well, Nathan, was that they got their family and friends to invest in improving Highland Park. So I bought a house, I fixed it up, I got my sister to buy, and so on and so. And therefore, you draw the people that you want to live with in your community.
Right.
And we got to start building that same concept, and therefore we can control what's going on in it.
Mm-hmm. And then one last question I've got kind of related to development is transportation. There's a lot of different moving pieces with transportation, no pun intended. We've got our automotive network, obviously, our roads made for cars and moving cars, but then we also have sidewalks, we've got bike lanes, and then public transit. How do you think the city council can balance all of these considerations and move forward so that all Chattanoogan's are able to get, from their house to their job and be able to do that in an equitable way and an efficient way?
Yeah, I think that all ways of transportation should be available safely in every part of the community, right? So we know we don't have a lot of areas don't have the bike lanes or access to the little bikes if they needed to, if they don't if they needed to rent one or to get a bike, the scooters, whatever form of transportation that people would need, because everybody now they don't have a car. You know what I mean? Walking is
Right.
cool if you can get back and forth by walking. We used to walk all the time and didn't even think about it. You know what I mean? When we were younger, the bus need to be more accessible for, we're in a time now where Chattanooga is beginning to thrive and the downtown life is trendy and fun. It's that it's going eventually to be 24 hours. You know what I mean? So we need to have people working and access to opportunities throughout, if it's the bus, if it's, walking safely, to your work, or somewhat walking safely to the park. Like our sidewalks need to be repaired, our roads most definitely need to be in good shape for people that are biking on the roads, people that are driving in cars, mobile. And so no matter the means of transportation, it should just be available and safe for everybody to do.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, I've got one last question for you. I just want to make sure, this podcast is a resource for you to be able to connect to your voters and tell them what your agenda is. So I just want to make sure, is there another issue that you're passionate about that you are running on that you want to share with the listeners?
Yeah, criminal justice reform, re-entry, because people, once they've done their time, Nathan, they're still held accountable still. And it's like a second punishment. Once you even come from those walls, you have a hard time, getting employment opportunities. You have trouble with obtaining housing, transportation. It's like reconnecting to your family. And it's, once that world side has stripped you of everything, like you feel dehumanized, right? And we need to be a city of Chattanooga that's welcoming. So people who've done their time, they're coming back. They've demonstrated, like, I want to be a productive member in society. And we should be able to equip them with resources and tools to make sure that they're not recidivating, right?
Right.
And so that's why part of why our workforce development department was created with the city of Chattanooga. I push for that because I understand, being a person who've experienced that, like the troubles that you go through with trying to just get connected to, land an interview, having connections to even purchase a t-shirt or a skirt, a tie for your interview, someone to help you get your resume and everything in order. So that's something that I'm really passionate about. But reform can take a lot of turns, you know what I mean? Not just with the criminal justice system. It could be with our environment. Environmental justice is important, you know what I mean? Our water quality justice. And it's just anything that's that we can improve to restore people to be whole and equip them to be thriving so they can live their best life and accomplish whatever their American dream may be.
Well, great. Where can voters find out more about you?
Yeah, so you can go to my website, come, and it's spelled just like my first and last name. And check me out on there. You most definitely, I'm on social media, Alice Demetrus Coonrod. You can reach me there. You can call me, you can inbox me, you can email me. I'm very responsive. If I don't hit you back up, within 48 hours, call me again. Hey, because I get busy, especially around campaign time. But I promise you, I hadn't forgotten about you. Anybody that have reached out, and but just hit me up. I'm here.
Great. Once again, Demetrus Coonrod, running for City Council for re-election in District 9. Thank you so much for your time, and good luck in the election next Tuesday.
Thank you so much, Nathan. Have a great day.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Chattanooga Civics. Our music was written and recorded by Kevin MacLeod. If you have any questions or feedback, please send me an email at chattanoogacivics@gmail.com. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram @chatcivics, or visit the website chattanoogacivics.com. Thanks for listening.